War in the field is fought by men in arms, but every so often battles are fought by other means. Though they take place out of sight, they can be just as destructive, if not more. Since the 1980s, millions of near-perfect counterfeit $100 bills have poured into financial markets. The banknotes, dubbed as superdollars, were likely produced by Pyongyang, since the bulk of them were discovered along the border of China and North Korea. The counterfeit operation raised alarm bells in Washington, and reasonably so. At stake was the credibility of the US dollar and thereby the security of the US economy. The tools of economic war can bring down governments, and no other is as devious as counterfeiting currency. For whoever controls the money supply of a nation controls the nation itself. I'm your host Shirvan, and welcome to Caspian Report. Today's episode is made possible by NordVPN, which is a tool that hides your IP and reduces your digital footprint. No one, including ISP operators, can see what you're up to. This technique ensures a secure and private web experience, which is now more important than ever. Just go to nordvpn.com/CaspianReport and use the promo code CaspianReport to get a 2-year plan with a huge discount plus 1 additional month for free. The competition for resources lies at the center of conflict. But economics do not just plunge countries into war, they can decide the outcome. Currency is no exception, and empires have risen and fallen because of it. In the 16th century, when Spain gained control of the global supply of silver, it became the world's first superpower. But in turn, mismanagement of the ensuing inflation shocked the Spanish Empire to its core and heralded its downfall. If handled recklessly, a currency can ruin its proprietor. Counterfeiting, therefore, is an old, time-tested yet unusual tool in economic warfare. It was infamously used during the American War of Independence. By mass printing dollars, the British Empire disrupted Washington's ability to reimburse its soldiers and nearly brought the fledgling nation to its knees. The Napoleonic Wars, World War II, and the First Gulf War have seen countries on all sides trying to disrupt, demoralize, and devastate their foes by propagating false currency. But to grasp the full destructive potential of counterfeits, one needs to consider the 7 Years' War in the 18th century. When Prussia was pitched against a larger and wealthier Russia, Frederick the Great came up with an ingenious plan. Since the Prussians shared the same currency as in Poland, Bohemia, and Saxony, the Prussian king reminted silver coins with large quantities of copper. In doing so, he multiplied his treasury many times over. Poland at the time was a neutral party in the conflict, but because it was stuck between warring parties, the Polish leadership allowed the foreign armies to march through its territory in pursuit of their respective missions. However, as the foreign troops wandered across Polish territories, they deliberately flooded the country with inferior coins. Traders noticed and exposed the counterfeits, which crippled confidence in the currency and plunged the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth into turmoil. Meanwhile, the Prussians had abandoned the inferior coins before inflation had affected them. Thus, without firing a single shot, the mighty Polish Empire fell into an irreparable crisis. This instability was later used to justify the partitioning of Poland. So not only did counterfeiting provide the Prussian king with the funds to win the war against Russia, but it also brought the Polish economy to a grinding halt and ushered in centuries of foreign domination. The lesson here is that the circulation of currency matters. Now, things have changed since then. Paper has replaced silver, and modern banknotes have security features designed to prevent counterfeiting. From special paper to color-shifting magnetic ink, micro-printed watermarks, and metallic microthreads, all meant to indicate authenticity. Forging modern banknotes is not easy. Yet, in 1989, the US Secret Service discovered a stack of unusual but seemingly innocent denominations. The $100 bills looked and felt like authentic dollars. The The banknotes were made of the exact cotton linen blend, printed with the same Swiss quality ink, and even the security fibers, threads, and watermarks seemed the same. But closer forensic testing revealed some microscopic mistakes in shading difference, alignment issues, and incorrect line widths. Though it was undetectable to the naked eye, the stack of banknotes was fake. They were so close to perfection that one forensic investigator described them as US dollars, just not made by the US government. The Secret Service classified the fake bills as Note Family C14342, but informally they were called superdollars. As soon as the level of expertise in forgery was revealed, the ramifications dawned on the Americans. When produced in large volumes, say in hundreds of billions, the superdollars could theoretically degrade the value of the US dollar in global markets. The stakes were high. At risk was the credibility of the US dollar and, by extension, the security of the US economy. As the world's undisputed global currency, the US dollar is used fervently in international business, including the sale and purchase of strategic resources. Due to this status as the universal means of exchange, roughly 60% of all national financial reserves are held in US dollars, and more specifically, US sovereign bonds. Because of the high demand for its currency, Washington can acquire loans at a consistently low price. In addition, since international trade requires US dollars, American sanctions are a much fair threat and an effective tool in foreign policy. These advantages have led to the US dollar being referred to as America's exorbitant privilege. The superdollar was a genuine threat to the establishment. Even though the denominations were forgeries of only banknotes and not sovereign bonds, the principle could bring everything crashing down like a house of cards. Although no definitive proof has been made public, the counterfeit bills were believed to originate from a single source, North Korea. The fact that most of the counterfeits were discovered by the China-North Korea border was a giveaway. Within North Korea, the most likely producer was the secretive Office 39, which predominantly focuses on maintaining foreign currency funds for the Pyongyang elite. Office 39 is tasked with gathering foreign exchange reserves to buy the loyalty of the political elite in Pyongyang. South Korean analysts claim that between 1994 and 2005, more than $250 million superdollars have entered global circulation. That's a significant sum, but still only a drop to the bucket of the $1.5 trillion in circulation. Even more worrying than the superdollars are forgeries of US Treasury bonds, which have also popped up in the same markets as the North Korean counterfeits. In 1999, Filipino officials seized more than $110 billion in counterfeit US sovereign bonds. The denominations ranged from tens of thousands of dollars to $500 million bonds. 2 years later, in the same market, more than $2 trillion were seized in counterfeit US Federal Reserve bonds. The biggest confiscation, however, occurred in Italy. What began as an investigation into a regional criminal syndicate in the south of Italy quickly turned into a protracted investigation across several countries. By chance, in a warehouse in Switzerland, American, Italian, and Swiss law enforcement discovered false US Treasury bonds worth up to an extraordinary $6 trillion. The source of the bonds originated from Hong Kong, a place where the North Koreans happen to do a lot of business in. And the Italian syndicate had tried to sell the bonds at the global markets. The gang was nowhere near to sealing a deal, likely because the forgeries bore denominations that do not exist. Now, while the North Korean Office 39 and the Italian criminal syndicate lacked the capabilities to produce hundreds of billions of false US banknotes and US Treasury bonds, their failed attempts show that with the right know-how, technology, and political will, the US dollar can be hijacked, at least in theory. Every fake dollar produced contributes to the pockets of adversaries while also directly undermining the value of the US dollar. The cost-benefit analysis works against the interests of Washington. Suppose a hostile country with a large industrial capacity, say China or Russia, would decide to engage in counterfeiting to reduce confidence in the US currency, it could spell an asymmetric disaster for Washington. At best, such an assault would devalue the dollar and weaken the US economy. At worst, industrial-scale forgery could destroy the confidence in the US dollar as a means of exchange. It would cause the global demand for the US dollar to plummet and trigger a race to exchange US government bonds for cash. The American Treasury would then be forced to print excessive amounts of money or default on its debts. Hyperinflation or the inability to procure loans could, in theory, lead to the complete incapacitation of state apparatus. Point in case, currency may no longer be made of silver coins, but its ability to bring down nations remains the same. There are, of course, measures to prevent things from spiraling out of control, but while the North Korean stalemate heads into the future, counterfeiting as a means of war will be one to watch for. Because as long as economies require confidence, acts of war will thrive on deceit. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report. If you like what we do, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching and Sağ ol.